In this video I'm going to demonstrate how to upgrade your bicycle from a thread-on freewheel to a Freehub and Cassette. There are two common styles of rear drivetrain systems on bicycles. The older, more inexpensive low-end style is called a freewheel. A freewheel is a cluster of sprockets with a built-in ratcheting mechanism in the middle. In the inside there are threads which get screwed into the threads on the hub of the corresponding rear wheel. The more modern style is called a freehub. These are found on most mid-range and higher-end bicycles. A freehub uses a cluster of sprockets called the cassette, however there is no ratcheting mechanism on the inside. In this system, the ratcheting mechanism is part of the hub. The cassette is installed by sliding it onto the hub and then locking it in place using this lock ring. So you may be wondering, what's the advantage of one over the other? Here's a diagram showing the cross-section of a freewheel style hub, the older style. The black represents the axle, which is what runs through the middle of the hub and gets bolted to the bike. The yellow represents the cones, spacers, and lock nuts, which are threaded onto the axle. The red represents the ball bearings, which roll along the cone surfaces. The gray surface is the body of the hub, which is what rolls along the ball bearings, and the spokes are connected to the two flanges. These threads are where the freewheel gets threaded on. One of the drawbacks of this design is that the applied load from the bike is not symmetrically applied to the axle because of the space needed to fit the chain rings in on the right hand side. Notice how the bearing on the right side is much further from the end of the axle. This means that under heavy loading the axle will begin to bend here and will eventually break at this point. Here's an example of an axle which is removed from one of those hubs, and as you can see it's already quite severely bent at that point and soon would be expected to break there. Now compare that to the cross-section of a free hub. Even though the flanges for the spokes are not symmetrical, the bearings are both placed near the ends of the axle. This means that the axles are less prone to breaking. It also means that larger sprocket clusters can be used. With a free hub you can go as high as an 11-speed cassette, whereas you can only go as high as 7 speeds with a freewheel. Over the years I've broken many axles on bikes which have freewheels, so today I'm going to upgrade this bike to a free hub system. As you saw from the cross-section, the two different styles of drivetrains use hubs, which are quite a bit different. So that means that in order to upgrade your bike from a freewheel system to a free hub system, you need to either replace your whole wheel with a wheel which has a free hub style of hub, or it means you need to buy a free hub style of hub and then rebuild your entire wheel. Unfortunately, rebuilding a wheel is quite a difficult and time-consuming task. I've already posted another video on this topic. In my case, my rim has a crack in it, so I've decided just to replace the whole wheel with a new wheel that I bought, which has that free hub style of hub. So I'll start by removing the wheel from the bike. Like so. Next I'll deflate the tire by removing the cap and pressing on the inside of the valve. Now using tire levers, I'll remove the tire and tube from the wheel. And there they're separated. My old rim has this rubber strip along the inside of it, which is used for protecting the tube from coming into contact with the ends of the spokes here and getting punctured from them. Since my new rim didn't come with one of those, I'm going to take this off of here and transfer it to my new rim. The only trick to this is finding the spot in the rubber strip where the hole is and making sure you line it up with where the valve stem is in the new rim. And now I'll install the old tire onto the new rim, being careful to make sure that the treads are facing the right direction. And now I just need to pump up the tire to the recommended pressure. Now the only thing this wheel is missing is a cassette to go on the free hub. So in my case, the cassette that I need to use for this wheel is the one that I already have installed here on this wheel. So first I need to take this cassette off of this wheel, and to do that I need these three tools down here. The first tool I need is something which has teeth on it, which can fit into the grooves which are on the inside of the lock ring, like so. The second tool I need is some kind of a wrench which can grip onto that tool to be able to apply torque to it to be able to loosen off that lock ring. And the third tool I need is something which looks like this, which is called a chain whip. So since my wheel has an axle with a quick release in it with this skewer which goes through it, that gets in the way of my tool coming in there to be able to grip on the inside of those teeth. So the first step is to remove this skewer, which you just do by gripping onto this end of it and then rotating the other end off. And then once you get it to the end of the threads, just be careful to make sure that you grab onto the little spring which is inside of there so you don't lose it. And then this skewer just gets pulled right out from in there. Then I take my tool and I insert it into there, and it should grip onto those teeth nicely. So basically what this is doing is gripping onto our lock ring, and our lock ring is a right-handed thread, so to take it off, all you've got to do is just rotate this in the counterclockwise direction like this. However, you see that when I rotate this, the cassette will freewheel because of the ratcheting mechanism in there. So what we got to do is we got to find something to grab onto the cassette, and then we're going to rotate this in our counterclockwise direction. So that's where this tool comes in, which is called a chain whip. And basically it's a very simple tool. All it is just this metal bar with a little piece of chain there and a longer piece of chain here. And all it's designed to do is to grip onto your sprockets, specifically for doing this job. So to do that, all you've got to do is just place this little bit of chain up against part of the sprocket there. Just pick any of them. Usually the bigger ones tend to work better because then you're able to wrap the chain further around and just put it on there like that. And that allows you to push in this direction and, you know, hold this cassette in place. And then you can put your wrench on the other end and rotate that, which will allow you to be able to loosen off this lock ring here, which just comes off like that. And then you'll be able to pull off the cassette, which sometimes is in multiple pieces. This one has the smallest chain ring which comes off, and then the rest of it comes off like that. Installing the cassette on the other wheel works much the same way, except you don't need to use the chain whip this time. One thing to be aware of, however, is that the ridges which are along the outside of the free hub are not uniform the whole way around. There is one which is much smaller, which is what allows you to be able to line up the sprockets the way that they were intended to be placed on there. So just find that spot where there's that thin one, and then with your cassette you can look on the inside and find the spot which has the thinner groove, which is right there, and I can line that up in there like that, and that goes on. And then do the same with the smaller sprocket. There's my thin one there, and that goes on like that. And then in order to get my lock ring, I have to take off my quick release again. That comes off just as easily as the other one. And then my lock ring goes in there, and since the ratcheting mechanism on here works in the opposite direction, when I want to rotate this in the clockwise direction, and I'm able to do that without this freewheeling because it wants to freewheel the other way. So I don't need to use the chain whip this time. All I have to do is just put my wrench on there and pull up and tighten it on, like so. Now you can install the wheel back on the bike. So since we've installed a different set of chain rings on this bike, it's possible that if we go and try and ride it, we may experience some problems with the chain skipping, particularly on the smaller chain rings. And that's because over time, as you ride a bike, the chain will gradually wear and the shape of the links will gradually start to change. But as those links are wearing and changing, the same thing will happen with your chain rings. So now if you try and use your old chain with a new cassette, then they probably won't be compatible and they'll start to skip. So if you're installing a brand new cassette on your bike, you should probably also get a brand new chain to go with it. Another thing which you'll probably need to tweak after you put the wheel back on the bike is the rear derailleur. You should probably make some adjustments to the limit screws to make sure that your derailleur can go far enough in each direction. You'll probably also need to make some adjustment to the cable so that your shifter will work properly. Also, if you're installing a brand new wheel on the bike, or you've just rebuilt your old wheel, you probably will need to make some adjustment to your brakes as well. Anyway, that concludes this video showing you how to upgrade your back wheel from a free wheel to a free hub. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.